And then I hit play again almost. Welcome to Heartland, Darkland. I'm Casie.
And I'm Shannon.
Hey,
Hey,
Darkers.
We're just
Hey.
technically challenged sometimes, so.
It's a rough day because as we
Yeah.
said, which would have been last week for you guys, we're recording these episodes back to back.
Can you believe that? We're just so on top of it this week.
Yeah.
This 1 week.
So then I got so paranoid about Enable Loop being on again
that
I had my button over the play button and was ready to hit stop, but then I hit play again.
Yeah, it's fine. It's totally fine.
It's all
good. So yeah, here we are.
We're
back
again.
Thanks for joining us this week again.
Yes, we appreciate it. You know, who knows what has happened in the week since you last listened.
Yeah, a lot.
But
probably.
you know, I will have gone to the book release for Onyx Storm at Barnes & Noble.
Oh yeah, that's next
Monday
week.
Night.
Yeah, well, that's exciting.
Yes.
I will have done not that, but I don't know.
Yeah,
that's
a good time.
That. Yeah, that is a good time.
I'm assuming it will be fun.
Yeah, I always love a good book release. I remember going to the parties at Borders back in the day. Lord. When the Twilight books came out.
Oh, yeah.
Did that.
Yeah, I made my husband go with me, which we were just dating at the time. I think it was Breaking Dawn, maybe. He had to go with me to Barnes & Noble because Lincoln did not have a Borders. And so it was a Barnes & Noble moment.
Oh, yeah. That's when I lived in Arizona, and there was a Borders literally down the street from my house. It was amazing.
Nice.
And
I miss Borders.
I know. I do too. I mean, Barnes & Noble's great and all. I just miss any time a bookstore closes. I just love a good bookstore, you know?
Well, and the problem is Barnes & Noble anymore, it's hit or miss, and if you can find a series 9 times out of 10, I'm like, ooh, this sounds interesting, and it's book 4 of,
I know.
And I'm like,
right.
Oh, where's book 1?
I know, and that's the thing that really sucks too. I'm like, you're a bookstore. Can you just please have every single book ever?
Yeah, or at the
is that
very
so much
least,
to ask?
At the very least, have the most recent book and book 1.
Right. If you're going to carry a series, make sure you have, most
at
of
least
those.
The first one.
Yeah, agreed.
Yes.
So that's annoying. And that's why I'm like, well, no wonder everyone is resorts to Amazon for everything.
Well, but I also think part
sucks.
of the problem is that they can't keep it all on hand because they're losing money because of Amazon, because Amazon will undercut. There's a whole bunch of I hate it, but I do sometimes still buy it from Amazon because it's so cheap.
Same.
But that's the problem is they undercut everybody, and then eventually they're trying to make it so they're the only book retailer essentially
of everything.
And then
it's almost it's kind of scary.
Yeah, well, then they'll jack up the price. Cause I'm sorry, Kindle books should not be $15 to $20.
No, I think that's the dumbest thing.
That takes you maybe 20 cents to and then it's just there and you're just making all that. No, that's bullshit.
If I'm going to spend that much money, it's going to be on a physical book
then
that
I can
reread and carry. And no, I know.
Yeah, I'm if the Kindle
stupid.
book is only $5 to $7 cheaper than a physical book, I'm going to buy the physical book because I'm not doing that. That's ridiculous.
That defeats the entire purpose of having a Kindle.
Yeah,
which by the way, I got a Kindle for Christmas.
Yes.
Cassie helped me set it up. I was just telling my mom that because she got it for me. I was like, Cassie was so sweet and helped me set up all the things because I didn't know any of the things. And I started reading out of it last night, and I have found I read a lot faster because when I can see the percentage, I'm like, oh, I'm already 29%. I might as well just go to 35 or so.
Or sometimes you can do it'll tell you how many minutes are left to read.
I'm it's only 5
reading speed. And so it's you've got 5 minutes left of the chapter, or it's you have an hour and a half left of this book. I'm like, well, I might as well finish the book then.
Yeah, exactly. So thank you for that. Because Cassie, last night was the first time I busted it out and actually used it. And I was like, oh, this is so fun. I'm so glad I know all the things thanks to my friend Casie. So yeah.
Also, a 700-page book in a Kindle doesn't feel as daunting.
I agree.
It's still so little.
I know. That's what I was confused about, because last night I was like, I'm just going to read 50 pages before I go to bed. And then, it doesn't tell you, well, I mean, you can find out obviously, but when I clicked on the thing then at the bottom and it was you read 138 pages. I'm like, what? I was like, is that the right amount? Because it's huh? I was really confused on if that was accurate to the physical book, but it apparently is. I don't know. That's what Goodreads said. So
yeah, see, there you go.
Yay, go team.
Yeah, yay reading.
Yeah. I love reading. It's so fun and
I know.
nerdy and, all the things. But
I know.
anyway, okay, nobody
Yeah.
probably gives a shit about that, but I
Well,
do. So
then they could have just kept hitting that 30-second ahead button. It's fine.
yeah, totally. Yeah, that's what it's there for. So yep.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
So,
anyway, carry on. Yeah.
we'll go in now. So this week I am going to be covering a case from Minnesota. And it's kind of interesting because when you mentioned in your episode that the victim in your case had
Oh
actually
yeah.
been a teacher from Minnesota, that's
Yeah.
kind of weird because the woman
I
in mine
didn't
is
even
a
think
teacher.
about that. Yeah.
Yep.
You're right. Yeah.
So there's a few different locations mentioned in this, and like I don't know, the one that I'm gonna call it Roseville since this is where the case like took place. So we're gonna
Yeah.
say it's Roseville, Minnesota. And so this week I'm going to be talking about the abduction of Mary Stauffer and her daughter Beth, which FYI, the way it's written, I thought it was Stauffer because I went to
I always said it
school.
that way in my head. Yeah.
So that's what I would have said, but then I watched a show, which I'll get to in a second, and they said Stauffer.
Ah,
So
okay. I literally, like, just what I do know about this case, I've always said that way in my head.
right,
But
and I'm like, well, okay, so maybe it is Stauffer in the show just said it, but you would think they would have fact checked that, right?
I know. Yeah,
I don't
especially if it's
know.
like something like that. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, because it was a Discovery Plus show, but I'm only going to call the only person's last name I'm going to use is the perpetrator.
Yeah.
I'll just call them Mary and Beth. So there are trigger warnings for mentions of sexual assault. I'm not going into any details or anything like that now, and I will just tell you right now that her daughter Beth was not assaulted from any information that I saw.
Thank God. Yes.
Not that
that
it
helps to
wasn't
go.
still horrific, but like it is
It's
good to
horrific
know
when a child's
right?
involved. Yep. All I have to say too is, if anyone needs someone to picture Allison Hannigan because she was in the Lifetime movie.
Yes, I was going to talk about that actually.
Yeah.
Yes, because I was going to be like, which is so funny because she doesn't look anything like.
Oh, she really
Mary.
doesn't. But that's all I picture when I think of this case because of that movie, and I'm like, how did
and
she
it's
get
funny
cast?
because
But
I didn't actually
rough
watch
times.
the movie
I did.
because I was
Loser.
like, well, I was just like, because it's based on it, like they
Right.
can embellish things.
Yeah, and for like research
so
purposes.
research-wise, I did not. But then I thought about it later. I was like, well, maybe I should have because maybe at the end they were like, they would have given a slight update about where Mary and Beth are these days.
It probably would have been not a recent.
Live.
Thank God. Yes.
Yes.
I don't know. I feel like because it was made a while back.
It was 2019.
The movie?
Yeah.
Oh, maybe it would have. I mean, I guess just as of recent as of that, probably. I don't know. Did they go back and ever update like since then type things? I wonder.
Don't think so. Not for the movies.
Well, and not
probably.
Lifetime.
I don't know. Yeah, but it's so funny because when I saw it was her, I was like, listen, I know that a lot of people nowadays probably recognize her from like How I Met Your Mother, but she will
I was thinking about
Willow.
American Pie.
Oh, that too.
I mean, a little different route.
She will always be Willow from Buffy to me.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I totally forgot that she's in Buffy. I knew that
that's
too.
how she met her
watched
husband.
some of it. Yeah,
yeah.
Duh. I'm just thinking of like the things that like the big things that she's known for. I did love her on How I Met Your Mother though too.
I only ever watched that show in bits and pieces. And then I heard about how it all ended, and I was like, well, that's stupid, so I'm not gonna go watch it from the beginning. I didn't watch it like
regularly, but I mean, I feel like I saw a lot of episodes, but it was cute. Anyway, carry on.
Anyways,
that was just all I had to say about that.
Yes. So the show I did watch was Your Worst Nightmare, and it was on Discovery Plus, which it's probably on Max or something too, wherever Discovery shows are.
Oh yeah.
So that information is going to be in the show notes. As we said, there is also a 2019 Lifetime movie, which is called Abducted: The Mary Stauffer Story or Stauffer Story. And other than that, though, the show didn't have a ton of information on it. So, like, I did use an article from A&E and a little bit of Wikipedia, like, just to kind of, like, verify that the information, like, was kind of lining up and being the same thing. But that's what's so funny to me is, like, even the show, it's like, in the show, I watched the show first before I really read a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't know she had a son.
I can't remember I don't know if they even mentioned that in the movie or not either. I don't know.
How do you not? Like, that's still part of her life. So I'm like, okay, so I don't know if the son was older or younger than Beth.
Yeah.
Still, like, that's information that wasn't really easy to find. And what kind of is shitty too is there's a whole Wikipedia page for the perpetrator, But there isn't a page for Mary or Beth.
That is shitty. I feel like that happens a lot too.
It does. And
it's focused on the person who
and
did
so
the
there
thing.
is like a Wikipedia page for the Lifetime movie a little bit and stuff too, but it's like, okay, but still, I don't know.
Maybe give them something like, especially enduring this. I mean, obviously you'll talk about the whole thing, but like to go through something so traumatic and not even get your own damn page on Wikipedia.
Right. Or not to,
get any kind of, I don't know.
Yeah, it just seems, I don't know.
It's sad when it's really focused on the perpetrator. Like a lot of these are, unfortunately.
Exactly. Yes. So on May 16th of 1980, Mary, who was 36, and at this point she's the wife of a pastor named Irv. And I don't think she was working at this point, but and her 8-year-old daughter, Beth, were leaving a hair salon in Roseville around 4:30 p.m. when a 29-year-old man, Ming Sen Shu, kidnapped them at gunpoint. So he forced Mary to drive his car a little way out of town before tying her and her daughter up and throwing them in the trunk. I guess he stopped a couple of times because they were praying too loudly. And on the second stop, when Shu was retying Beth because Mary had gotten her partially freed, 2 young boys noticed something was going on, and one of them, Jason Wilkman, who was a 6-year-old boy, walked up to the vehicle and saw the 2 in the trunk.
Oh yeah, I kind of remember that little bit.
So unfortunately, Shu threw him in the trunk and drove to Carlos Avery Wildlife Refuge, and there he beat the young boy to death with a metal rod and left his body there.
Oh my gosh. I don't remember that part. Oh gosh. Okay. That's absolutely horrific. I remember someone like seeing them, but I couldn't remember what came of that. Oh my gosh.
Yep. And
I want to puke. That is awful.
The thing that I find weird too is it's not brought up of like who the second boy was. Did he relay? Which maybe if I had gone, and maybe I should have looked up Joseph himself to try to get more information, or Jason to see if maybe there would have been a whole nother like little bits of things about him, because he's missing at this point as far as anyone in his family is concerned.
Yeah, that's what I would assume. And you think the friend would be like, yeah, he talked to a guy in a color car like this, or
And so then it kind of also makes me curious. Like I was kind of surprised that nothing was like really like Jason's only really mentioned in the things in this brief moment. And honestly, I don't think the show even mentioned him.
It's interesting.
Yeah. And so that came from like Wikipedia, and then the A&E stuff. I don't remember them mentioning him at all.
See, and that's like a pretty horrific part of the story then too. Yes. I mean, like, oh my gosh, this shows what kind of person they're dealing with and how dangerous the situation is. And
yes. And so that's what's also a little sad. And like I said, I probably should, I was so focused kind of on trying to find more information about like Mary and Beth that it's not till as I'm telling you about it that I'm like, well, if I had searched Jason Wilkman's name, maybe more stuff would have come out, because maybe I'll do a little like next week when we record, do a little update, and I might try to deep dive into that a little bit more, because I am curious, because if you have 2 people who went missing on the same day, I'm wondering if it's connected that at all, because they don't even like, you think they would have talked about that, some of the stuff somehow.
That's true. And who knows, maybe you won't even find anything, because once again, it's like they just focus on the shitty person who wants the attention anyways, to, you know what I mean? Which is dumb too. I'm like, you're giving them exactly what they want, but okay.
Well, and it makes me wonder if poor little Jason would have been kind of overshadowed.
I know.
By, you know.
For sure.
Yeah. Because, nope, even when I'm like Googling Jason's name, it's stuff about Mary and Beth, like, is what comes up.
Yeah, see, that's sad that he's gonna always be connected to that, which it's because of that happened, but at the same time, like, he's still his own little person, you know?
Right. So then, like I said, I'm so curious, like, and there is actually a book too called Stalking Mary by Eileen Bridgman Bairdat, which I didn't read, so it makes me wonder if she would go into more detail with that stuff too, because it's like, nothing really talks about like how connected that stuff was.
Right. Because you think it would have been an easier fix to find them had they followed up on this case or connected it more. But I guess 80s, they didn't have a lot of DNA stuff either. So,
right. And unfortunately, I'll kind of mention this later, but Jason's not found until after Mary and Beth.
So he was just missing as of then. So they probably really couldn't have connected it to.
But you still have two people who went missing on the same, or three people who went missing on the same day.
Well, and who knows if that other little boy that was with him, saw enough to share. But sometimes kids get scared of that stuff too, like,
And that's what I'm curious about. Like, did the little boy say anything? Was that reported?
Yeah.
Like, how long did that take? Did police think that these were connected in any way? Like,
so many questions.
I know. So anyway, unfortunately, after that, after he kills Jason, he drives them to his house in Roseville, and Mary actually at one point, because he takes them and he ties both Mary and Beth up into a small closet in the basement. And I guess the show talks about how she found a dry cleaning receipt that had the address that they were at. So she knew where they were.
That's awesome, though, that she was at least put that together.
Well, and they were only a mile from her house.
Holy shit.
And according to the show, like, the closet was set up in a way that it was obvious that he had plans to keep them there long term. Oh. Like, there was chains, there was bedding. It sounds like maybe there was a bucket. The show shows a bucket in there, but then, like, I don't know if he would have forced them to use that or not, because then we'll kind of talk more later about some of that. Anyways, who was Shu and why did he kidnap Mary and Beth? Like, was this just a random thing? Mm-hmm. So Shu was born October 15th in 1950 in Taiwan. And when he was 8 years old, he moved to Minnesota. And the only place that I could find anything that talks about that was Wikipedia. And it just says with his mom and two siblings. I don't know if they were older or younger. But then it says his dad was a professor at the University of Minnesota. So, like, I don't know if dad was already in Minnesota for a while working to bring them over. They all came together. Like, I don't know exactly. But at 8, they moved to Minnesota. But unfortunately, 3 years later, when Shu was 11, his father died. And Shu was described as being violent toward his siblings, and at the age of 14, he was required to participate in therapy because he had helped to start fires in 3 separate apartments of, like, strangers. God. Like, he didn't know these people. And according to his mother, like, he often lied, he was persistent that he was right, he was uncontrollable, and he took no responsibility for any of his physical behavior. So, like, she was afraid of him. And she even, like, one of the things has her quoting as saying she described him as someone having, quote, no feelings like a dog, which I think is unfair to dogs because they clearly have tons of feelings and empathy. So
say something else like a worm or something, like,
or a cat. Cats are
even
unfeeling.
Cats are assholes.
You know what I mean? Like,
they don't care.
Damn. Yeah, but a dog. I mean,
no, dogs for sure have feelings.
Right. Yes. So from 1965 to 1966, he attended Alexander Ramsey High School in Roseville, Minnesota. And this is where he developed an unhealthy crush on his 9th grade algebra teacher, who happened to be Mary Stauffer. So he was like 15 or 16 when he develops this infatuation, and he starts to write out sexual fantasies about her, which included it included consensual sex, but also rape and gang rape. Yeah. And he would eventually decide that this wasn't enough and he needed to kidnap her. So, like I said, he kidnapped Mary and her daughter in 1980. This has been a thing for 15 years. For 15 years, he is obsessed with her.
Oh, yeah. Since way before she probably even had her daughter then, at least. Because if the daughter's only 8, right?
Yeah.
Oh, my.
So, and when he kidnaps Mary and her daughter, this wasn't the first time he tried. He had actually made several attempts over the year. over the several years to kidnap her.
Yikes.
So in 1975, Shu broke into a home in Duluth that he thought belonged to Mary. Like, he thought she lived here, but it actually turned out that it was her in-laws. Because actually, her and her husband, which 75, her kids too, they were in the Philippines doing missionary work.
Oh, wow.
So he breaks in, he ties them up, and threatens them at gunpoint, like if they report it, the break-in, that he'll come back and kill them. So they don't report this.
Oh, come on.
It's not until Mary and Beth are kidnapped that they finally mention that, which...
And also, I was just thinking the other day, I was watching a show where someone was like, you know, let me go, I won't tell anyone, I promise. And I'm like, who actually isn't going to tell someone if they let them go? Like, isn't that common sense? We all know that even if you say you're not going to tell, you're gonna. One would think this situation. So that's funny that you mentioned that.
In-laws didn't. I don't know. Like, yeah, how do you not? I guess maybe they were just like, well, nothing was. I don't think anything was taken or anything. Yeah, and so I don't know.
Wanted to give him like second chance. I don't know. Some people are very trusting and kind, but no, thank you.
So Mary and Irv and their kids moved back to St. Paul, Minnesota in 1979, and Shu found out about it. And he tried to break into their apartment 3 different times. One time he tried drilling holes into the floor beneath their bed.
Oh. Like from underneath?
I guess. That's just it. That's all it says. I'm like, how are we not getting more information? Did he somehow get the apartment under theirs? Did he break into the apartment?
And how do we know
theirs?
this? Is this his account of it? Or like, how do they know?
I don't know.
You know, like some of those old cases, did he admit it? Like,
maybe.
Yeah.
So what finally spurred him to really try again at this point was Irv announcing that their family was moving to the Philippines for 4 years again soon for more missionary work. And like the show makes it look like Shu went to the church that he was a pastor at often, and like they show him sitting directly behind Mary and like sniffing her hair. And I'm like, that looked like a busy church. And I'm pretty sure someone would have noticed. And like Mary doesn't recognize him at first when he kidnaps them. And it's like she would have at least recognized his face from church.
You would think, from church. Yeah, that's so true. Well, and like if it was her high school student, okay, people change a lot from the time. I mean, it's been a long time. So
she didn't recognize him as her 15. Like it had been 15 years. And I'm sure she'd had a lot of students.
That's what I was just gonna say. So it's not like people can be like, oh my gosh, how did she not know it was him? It's like, no.
Yeah, exactly. So once Shu had Mary and her daughter, he kept them separated most of the time.
Oh, gosh, that'd be so terrible.
He would lock Beth in a box in his van for the day sometimes, like when he had to go to work.
Oh my gosh.
And like I said, the show kind of made it out like he was trying to make them a family. And about a week into their captivity, he forced Mary to write a letter to her husband saying she was unsure of the move and needed time. And he was like, don't try anything. I'm going to know. Because like he had seen paper, they were looking for him. So he thought this would make it so
her
husband would just stop. And he often used her husband and son as tools, and obviously her daughter, who's physically there, as threats against her. And, it's one of those things that, like, he did, unfortunately, like, rape her repeatedly, and often he recorded it. And it would be for like hours on time. And he wanted her to, like, he would get angry that she wasn't reciprocating. He'd threaten her, saying that she had to, otherwise, she needed to make love to him. Like she was
obsessed with her.
And, yes. And like I said, in his mind, it seems like he thought that now that he had that, they were all a family. And so like he would bring them to the dining room table and stuff to eat.
Yeah. I remember that being a little bit portrayed in the film. The Netflix, the Lifetime one. And I remember thinking that was really bizarre. But like, I think, and it like shows her, which as you're probably mentioning, like kind of just going along with it, hoping that he'll kind of like think she's into it,
and like letting her go. And like, I'm sure you do what you need to, to try to keep your daughter safe, and you know,
especially with your kid there, it's like way different than, I mean, even just being there by yourself, you know, but
right.
knowing you have your kids to live for, but like actually having your kid present, I would be mortified. I mean,
Well, and
how
like I said, I
terrible.
mean, he would often like threaten Beth to make Mary compliant. So 53 days they are with
Oh.
him. So it's July 7th of 1980 when Shu left for work. And Mary and Beth were locked in the closet together and like they were chained together. The show made it sound like someone was coming back to this house and was going to be there. No one else like mentions that or anything, but Mary gets a hinge off of the door, and Beth, who's 8 years old, and he's been threatening them, you know, is
Right. So
terrified to try to
scary.
make a run for it.
Oh,
She's
yeah.
like, if he comes back, he's going to hurt us.
He's probably brainwashed her so much too. Like, talk about
The
needing
poor girl was
therapy.
terrified.
Yeah.
So Mary, like, is like, no, we have to go. This is our chance. And they get upstairs. They use his phone to call police to tell them where they are.
Good.
And then they are so afraid because I don't think his work was that far from them either. So they go
he
outside.
could have been there quick.
So he could have come back. So they go outside, and I think they kind of hide in the bushes. But luckily the police don't take very long to get there.
That's shocking.
And when, you know, Mary and Beth are still chained together when the police get there.
Yeah. I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
Yep. But Shu was arrested then that same day at work. And he apparently offered $50,000 to another inmate to kill Mary and Beth so they couldn't testify against him.
Oh my gosh. He's extreme.
Yeah. But this inmate actually told the FBI about this.
Good.
Yes. So Shu had 2 trials. The first was for the kidnapping of Mary and Beth and the rape of Mary. And this actually became a federal case because at one point during their imprisonment, Shu actually took them over state lines to Illinois for a work conference in his RV.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So whenever you take someone across state lines unwillingly, that is now a federal case.
And do you know, and I don't know if this was just maybe dramatized in the movie because it's a movie, but I remember the part in the movie where he does take them, and when they're in the RV or whatever, Mary like sees some people and she's trying to get help, and they're like, I don't know, I'm sure that was probably just
nothing like on the stuff I read. Like the show didn't even mention him taking them across state lines.
Probably just covering like the basics.
Like, yeah, and so it wasn't until I was reading stuff I was like, wait a second. How was this not mentioned? So this is another one of those things that I was a little surprised that we just had this one show and a Lifetime movie about it too.
I know. That is odd. I figured there'd be a ton on that just because when there's usually a freaking Lifetime movie, it's a big thing. Because in the movie, they like show that, which I'm sure that could have been just some of that, you know, dramatized for the movie. But like, it also was like, I mean, it could have been either way. It's not like anyone saw them there to help them. So it doesn't really matter either way. But
so during this federal trial, Shu attempted to attack Mary while she was on the witness stand. He didn't succeed. They stopped him and he was found guilty. He was sentenced to life in prison, but was eligible for parole after 10 years. Yes.
That happened. Life sentence, but 10 years.
Hey, it gets worse.
Oh my gosh.
And at the time, the federal court actually required that people sentenced to life, they actually had a mandatory release after 30 years unless proven to be a danger to society.
So what's the point of even sentencing that to them? Just give them 30 years if that's what the case is. Like, what?
Yeah. Which that also, because I'm like,
that brings up
that seems ridiculous.
Yeah.
Completely. And so the judge recommended that he serve the full 30 years.
Yeah.
So the second trial then was a state-only trial, and that was for the murder of 6-year-old Jason Wilkman. And like I said, his body wasn't actually found until Shu was arrested, and Shu was the one who told police where his body was.
Did they know that he was connected, you think, at that point?
I would assume at that point they had to have, right?
Yeah.
Like,
you would... I'm sure a lot of big things like that don't happen in a small or like, I guess I don't know how big, but still enough to think that it would be connected.
Yeah.
Gosh, how sad.
Yeah. So yet again, Mary testified against Shu, who again tried to attack her, but this time he actually succeeded and he stuck a knife into court. And so I did actually eventually, which I linked this little, it was only like a 3-minute clip, but when the movie came out, um, I couldn't find the full interview of them, but there was a clip of an interview with Mary and Beth from the Lifetime movie.
Okay.
And Mary talks about how he like had the knife and was threatening to kill her if they didn't back off, and he cut her from like chin to like one side of her mouth. She had to have 62 stitches.
And this was during the trial when he did this?
During the trial, he snuck in a knife.
How did they not stop him sooner? Which I guess that doesn't, you can do that pretty quick, I guess, but still.
But how do you sneak in a knife? Like, how are we not checking prisoners before they're brought in?
What year would this have been in?
It was still in the 80s,
it sounds like
right? The trials happened quickly. It sounds like they happened in the 80s. Like, both trials, it sounds like still happened in 1980.
That's insane. Why was he so, like, creepily obsessed with her? You know what I mean? Like, to that level of, like, you want to be a family with her, but now you want to kill her, and just some weird, dark fantasy shit.
I mean, 15 years he didn't let go of that. So,
yeah.
So Shum was found guilty of Jason's murder, and he only got 40 years for that, and I don't understand why that wasn't a life sentence as well. I guess I don't know
but
Minnesota's
the abduction
laws, but like, I don't know if it's because he didn't plan it, so like
a second
degree murder.
Yeah,
I don't know, but these sentences were to be served concurrently, so that means they were being served at the exact same time.
So that doesn't serve any purpose. That always irritates me when I hear that, because it's like, why even bother? Like, that's basically just wiping one of them away.
Yeah, so it's not like it was even 70 years. At most, we're looking at 40 years, and he was only 29 when he committed these crimes.
That's
so
what I was wondering.
69.
So he still has lots of time, I mean, to do a lot of damage, unfortunately.
Yes. So he first became eligible for parole in 2010, but it was denied. And from what I can see, he's still in prison.
Okay, good.
I couldn't find anything. I can't find anything past 2019, which said he was still in prison. But it looks like in 2010, a judge ruled that he could be held indefinitely, which... Thank goodness, because clearly he showed he was persistent with how long he kept his obsession with Mary, even when she was out of the country for like 5 years.
Right. Like, you think he'd move on at some point.
Yes. Wow. Yeah. And like I said, so there was an interview after Mary and Beth were, after the Lifetime movie came out. And they talk about how they wanted the movie to be made to hopefully bring hope to other survivors.
Yeah.
And Beth said that for 53 days their life was hell, but they weren't going to give them another day past that. So it sounds like they're doing really well. I think they really leaned into their faith. And that's that's all I could find though. Like, yeah. So that's where I wondered if I had watched the Lifetime movie at the end, at least it would have been like, oh, they did these things up until this point as of 2019. Like, is Mary married or is Beth married? Did they have to, I don't know. You know what I mean?
That's interesting. Yeah. Well, because that's a pretty crazy case. And I mean, anytime you have one of these cases too where there's survivors, it's like, whoa, because, and it sounds like this guy was such a violent person anyway that it's a shock. But I mean, based off like what I saw in the movie, they made it look like she was very just kind to him. And I mean, that's probably what saved her life ultimately, because I feel like as soon as you start like talking back and, you know, getting feisty is when they get pissed. And so she sounds like an amazing person to endure all that she did, especially with her daughter there. Like, wow, that is wild and so scary. Those are the kind of things that scare the shit out of you. And I feel like after 53 days, like, I don't know, I would probably, like, you would just start losing hope anyway. That's so long, you know, and then to be assaulted probably multiple times a day.
Well, and the one thing is that for like hours sometimes, and it's like,
so sick. Wow. I think I do love a good survival story though. Like, those are very inspirational always.
And it's nice, like I said, because like it was Barry talking, and you see her as Mary, Beth. I mean, both. But you know, to see Beth, even who seemed like a happy woman, you know, in the brief little clip I saw, I think that's really nice to know.
Oh, I like that.
She, like, they were able to persevere through that, and like I said, she was like, we're not gonna let him take any more time from us, and I think that's fantastic. So
I think a lot of people would not have that same reaction, you know,
and I think that's perfectly understandable. Like, that's
nobody would blame you for that.
Like, that's
horrific. And I feel like as a child, I mean, it's terrible as an adult, but as a child too, like, gonna be traumatized your entire life, for something like that. And thankfully there's lots of
Right.
resources, but wow. And I
Well,
am
and back
glad though
then,
that he
who
did
knows?
not sexually assault her at
Yes.
least, because that actually surprises me based on how violent he was with the other little boy and just in general how violent he was. And
Yeah. Yeah.
but
But I think too, it kind of seemed like Jason
Mhm.
was potential obstacle to what he
right.
wanted, which was Mary, and Beth was a resource for him
He could
to
hold her over.
control
Yep.
Mary.
That's what I was
And
thinking. I was like, he could just, I mean, because if he had killed like my child, I'd probably be like, I don't care. You might as well just kill me. I'm not going to do anything you want. So,
right, right. And like I said, the show, I don't know how much of this is accurate or not, but like the show would show him talking to Beth, being like, "Oh, did you like the book I got you? What if I got you a TV?
oh, yeah.
What do you think about like so like it was this
Brainwashed.
weird thing of him being violent and controlling, but like somehow still thinking that they could be like all of them could be a family together or
Right.
something. I don't
That is
know.
weird. And I wonder if he knew that when he kidnapped them, that she had her daughter with her, like, or if it
Me and
was just like, oh, I thought it was just her, but
I kind of feel like he did. Because he
Mhm.
had to have been stalking her because
Oh, yeah,
it
that's
sounds
true.
like um he maybe would have like I think one thing I saw said like Mary mentioned like he would talk about her husband, her kids and stuff. So she thought that he had maybe even broken into their home before.
Oh, and knew.
Yeah, and so he knew things about them, which he was obviously an obsessed stalker.
Right.
So I feel like nothing ever says, but it almost feels like he did
Because he
plan
knew
it
he
as
could
a control
control.
tactic.
Yeah.
And yeah,
That's interesting. I'm surprised, which I mean, I'm grateful that he didn't try to like hurt her husband or something. Like, I'm surprised he didn't try to kill him just so he's like completely out of the picture type
yeah,
thing.
yeah. I
But
wonder if he thought in his head, like I said, like the killing of the little boy, Jason, I feel like was just a thing. And I'm not, obviously, he's clearly capable of murder.
right.
But I'm wondering if his thought was, I'll have Mary write him a letter so he'll still go to the Philippines without her,
Oh,
and this
that's
will just not be a thing,
it's one less thing to deal with. Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah, that's so true. It's like I wish he could have just kept the little boy too then and been like, okay, we're all one big happy family.
I
Like
know.
I mean, like why did you have to take it to that extreme?
I
You know?
know.
I don't know. But wow. Especially a 6-year-old kid. Like, I mean, I hate to say that people probably wouldn't have taken him seriously, but like, and who knows, he might have not even said anything. Kids are weird about stuff sometimes. Like if he said, don't tell anyone, he probably
Right.
would have
If
been
you
like
threaten a
scared and like,
small
okay, I
child, like,
won't. Yeah.
yeah, I'll come back and find you if you do.
Right.
Like,
Like,
we
just
see
why
that
didn't
all
he
the
just
time.
do that? I know. Like, you just think of all these things. Like, he could have just left this little boy out of it, but
Yeah.
what's done is done. But what a piece. And I hope he gets treated like shit in prison. So
I
that's,
know. Like I said, I even try to see like 2024. Shoo,
yeah,
is he still nothing? Everything was from like 2010 or 2019. And I was like, all right, well, I have to just assume and hope that he is still in
right.
prison because, like I said, I mean, he showed his clear obsession. I feel like there is no coming
No,
back from that.
I know. And any judge that would release him, I think is crazy because
Yeah.
I don't care how long it's been, something like that, people do not just get rehabilitated from like that kind of
No.
weird stalker obsession.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be out in a world that he's walking free. So
Right.
that's wild and weird. And
Yeah. So,
okay. Wow.
I'll have that
Thanks.
stuff, like I said, in the show notes. Lifetime. I don't even know where Lifetime movies are, but I'm sure you could find
I
that
think
movie somewhere.
I think I watched it on Hulu when I watched it because they have a
Yeah.
bunch on there, but I
That's
don't
what I
know.
thought.
Because I think I was like, I hadn't even heard of the case, I think at the time. And then I was like, oh. And then after I watched it, then I went down like the rabbit hole because I was like, this is wild. Like, you don't
Yeah.
ever really hear about people surviving. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. So
Anyway, cool. I mean, not cool,
yeah. But yeah.
cool.
But that's
Cool.
that's Roseville, Minnesota for
Okay,
this week.
well, I'm glad that you shared that with us because I did not know a lot of the details on that, and that's sad.
Yeah. And again, it's one of those things that I'm like, well, this does feel like a bigger case that I'm surprised. Like, if
Right.
Lifetime, when the movie was made out of it, how are there not?
I know.
Even like you said, like, there's
You
more
just
details of like were these cases interconnected? Did the police know sooner?
Right.
How old's her son?
Right.
Like,
And then it makes you wonder if he had like other people he had stalked in the past. And like, I mean, I hate,
I
like,
don't
I
know.
like
It kind of
hearing
sounds like maybe he was just all about Mary.
that's true for holding on to that for that long.
Yeah. Like they don't
Dang.
talk about anything in that time. Like, so I don't know. It would
Mary
be
was
interesting
just
to know if he
right.
had any other attacks or assaults on women
Right.
in
Mary
that
was a
time frame.
snack, I guess, because I mean, he was all about it. So
Yes. Yeah.
okay, get it,
So,
Mary. You're cute.
you know,
Yeah.
so I guess if you guys have more information, like I said, I'll see if I can maybe find some more information about poor little Jason.
Sweet boy. That's so awful. I hate when just, I mean, the victims are always innocent anyway, but like when it's a child, like literally doing nothing and innocent to the entire world, like that's just makes me so sick and so angry. But yeah, hopefully he pays the price and has a miserable existence.
And hopefully he just never gets out of prison. So
yeah, I hope he dies in there.
Yeah. So yeah, that's that case this week, you guys. As usual, you can. It may be TikTok still up at this point. Who knows? But we're on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and YouTube. You can email us if you have more information, questions, concerns. If you have case ideas.
Yeah, we love case ideas, especially
for other states.
Yes. We have a lot of Nebraska ones, but like if you live in one of these other smaller, I mean, not smaller states, but just one of these other states, and like there's something that you think everybody already knows about, we probably don't, because
still tell us, because if we haven't covered it, like especially like North Dakota, like we were just talking about this, we're like, no one lives there.
I know.
Doesn't have much crime there. Right. So, or even like it doesn't even have to be crime. A weird case. I love weird cases, you guys.
Or just like weird
haunted
anything
place,
weird,
cryptids,
some kind of weird
whatever.
crime thing. It doesn't have to be like a murder per se. You know? Or is there a weird cult? Did you have a weird experience with someone, a creepy thing, or
listen, I also, the one thing that is hard to find too sometimes is like sometimes I'm like, I want a survival story.
Yes.
And those are hard to find sometimes too. So
they are really hard to find.
If you know of some of those from any of the states, because I feel like even in Nebraska, I've had a hard time finding any of those. So if you know any like I survived stories from any of our Midwest states, because you know what, that's why I do the paranormal and the cryptids and stuff, is because I need a break from that. And heavy. So sometimes even when they are those heavier, like obviously if someone's surviving something, there's those heavier cases. But like, even if they survived some weird freak accident, let us know.
Yeah. We just want all the things, all the weird, creepy things. Yeah. So it doesn't matter whether it's crime related or not. We want it all.
Exactly. If it's Midwest, you let us know.
Yeah. And even if it starts as Midwest and then ends not in the Midwest, we still want to know.
We still want to know, because we will.
And
we'll
plus,
use that.
Sometimes we occasionally will go off track for fun and pick different states. So like if there's one that you really want to hear covered, you should send it to us too, because we would love to have some of those for the docket. Yeah.
Especially like, do you know of one that's maybe lesser known from another country even? Like send it to us, because we do, we've got plans for our 3-year anniversary is coming up soon. So
that's insane. When we were planning that the other day, I was like, no, I'm pretty sure it's 2. And then we were looking, I was like, oh, wow. Time flies when you're having fun.
Right? It is 3, right? Did we start?
It's 3 because it was 2022.
Shit. Yep.
Yeah. Yep. Sure was.
Yeah. Wow. So send us all the lesser known things, Midwest especially, but like, if you have some other random ones, let us know.
For sure.
Until next time, though, stay heartily and kind.
But darkly and wary.